You won't believe what happened next. Seriously, if you're like me, you think you know how this story ends, but you don't. This moment, right here, captured on a shaky phone camera, changed billions of dollars in military tech and redefined what genius really looks like. Stick with me, because this story will restore your faith in the human spirit, and by the end, you'll see why this channel is your home for the most incredible true stories you've never heard. Don't forget to hit subscribe and join our community of curious minds. The USS Vigilance was a leviathan of the seas, a $13 billion testament to American engineering, and it was dead in the water. For 3 agonizing days, in a classified sector of the Pacific, the most advanced aircraft carrier in the fleet was paralyzed. A critical cooling valve deep within the bowels of the ship's reactor support system had failed. The ship's nuclear heart was safe, but without cooling, it was a matter of time before systems would begin to catastrophically melt down, forcing a total scuttling. The entire crew, over 5,000 souls, was on edge, the air thick with a cocktail of fear and frustration. At the epicenter of this storm was Admiral James Thorne, a man whose granite jaw and icy stare had cowed 4-star generals. He was surrounded by a team of the nation's top civilian engineers, flown in under the cover of darkness. They stood around the faulty valve, a monstrous, chrome-plated assembly of pipes and gears, their faces illuminated by the stark work lights, their expressions a uniform mask of defeat. Schematics were spread across the floor, covered in frantic red markings. "It's a sealed, tamper-proof unit," Admiral, the lead engineer, a man named Drive Evans, explained for the 3rd time, wiping grease from his forehead. "The manufacturer says it's a non-serviceable part. We can't get it open without destroying the integrity of the entire system. Our only option is a dry dock replacement, and that will take weeks we don't have." Admiral Thorne's patience, never a plentiful resource, had evaporated. He slammed his fist against a bulkhead, the metallic clang echoing in the tense silence. "Weeks. I have a carrier strike group doing donuts in the ocean. The Chinese are probably laughing their satellites off. This is the pinnacle of our technology, and it's been defeated by a 5-inch valve." He scanned the faces of the engineers, his gaze dripping with contempt. "Fix this," he seethed, his voice low and dangerous. "I don't care how. You figure this out, and I'll personally see to it that your company gets a $100 million R&D contract. Hell, I'll give you $100 million of my own money. It's a worthless promise if we're all evacuating to lifeboats tomorrow." Unseen, just beyond the circle of high-ranking officers and brilliant minds, was Leo. He wasn't an engineer or a sailor. He was a single dad, a journeyman HVAC technician who had been aboard the Vigilance for a week, part of a contractor team upgrading the crew's living quarters climate control. He was there because his daughter, Maya, had a rare, week-long school break, and with no one else to watch her, his commanding officer, a sympathetic soul, had allowed him to bring her along, provided she stayed out of the way. Maya, a bright-eyed 8-year-old with a mind that saw the world in patterns and connections others missed, was currently sitting on Leo's tool chest, swinging her legs and sketching in a notebook. Leo heard the Admiral's outburst, the desperation beneath the rage. He felt a familiar pang, the feeling of being an outsider, a simple man in a world of giants. He looked at his daughter, who met his gaze with a quiet curiosity. He knew that look. She had been listening. Taking a deep breath, Leo stepped forward, his coveralls a stark contrast to the crisp uniforms and clean lab coats. "Admiral, sir, excuse me." Every head turned. A junior officer moved to block him, but Thorne waved him off, his eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" "Leo, sir. HVAC tech. I couldn't help but overhear. My daughter, she's good with puzzles. With how things fit together. Can she take a look?" The silence that followed was more deafening than the Admiral's shout. A few of the engineers scoffed, turning back to their schematics. Admiral Thorne looked from Leo's earnest, weathered face to the little girl with pigtails, clutching a stuffed rabbit in one hand and a pencil in the other. For a moment, it seemed he would erupt. But then, a strange, weary smirk crossed his lips. It was the absolute rock bottom of absurdity. "Why not?" he mocked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "The best minds in naval engineering have failed. Let's see what the kindergarten class can do. Fix this, kid, and I'll give you $100 million. He laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. Leo's cheeks burned with humiliation, but he knelt beside Maya. What do you see, sweetie? He whispered. Maya slid off the tool chest and approached the complex, gleaming valve. The engineers watched with a mixture of pity and derision. She didn't look at the schematics. She didn't ask about pressure differentials or metallurgy. She just walked a slow circle around the unit, her head tilted. She noticed what none of them had, a series of almost imperceptible, flush-mounted arrows etched into the casing, pointing in a specific sequence. They were so subtle they were practically decorative. She then looked at the tools the engineers had laid out, complex, specialized, and utterly useless for this specific, tamper-proof design. She walked back to her dad's tool chest, opened it, and pulled out a simple rubber mallet, the kind used to gently tap ductwork into place without causing damage. An engineer snorted. We're past percussive maintenance, little girl. Ignoring him, Maya walked back to the valve. She placed the head of the mallet not on the main body, but on a small, unmarked flange near the base, right where the sequence of arrows originated. She looked at her dad, who gave her a small, confident nod. Then, with a gentle, precise tap, she struck the flange. There was a soft, almost inaudible click. Then, to the utter astonishment of everyone in the room, the entire front plate of the non-serviceable valve assembly loosened. One of the engineers, his jaw agape, stepped forward and, with his fingers, was able to swing the plate open like a door, revealing the seized-up ceramic rotor inside. The core of the problem was now exposed, ready for a simple, 10-minute repair. The compartment was frozen in time. The only sound was the ever-present hum of the ship. Admiral Thorne stood motionless, his face a canvas of wiped-clean arrogance, slowly being repainted with sheer, unadulterated shock. He looked from the open valve to the little girl, who was already walking back to her notebook, as if she'd just fixed a wobbly table leg. Dr. Evans was the first to speak, his voice a whisper. The arrows, they were an installation guide. A torque sequence. You had to release the primary lock first. He looked at Maya with a reverence usually reserved for Nobel laureates. How did you know? Maya looked up, her expression simple and clear. The shiny men were looking at the paper, but the metal was telling a story. It had a secret knock. The Admiral finally found his voice. He walked over to Leo, who was standing protectively near his daughter, his own heart swelling with a pride so immense it felt like it would lift him off the deck. Thorne was no longer a mocking superior, he was a humbled man. Son, he said to Leo, his voice thick with emotion. I owe you an apology. The biggest apology of my life. He then looked at Maya. And I owe you a future. The Admiral was true to his word, though not in the literal, $100 million way. He became Maya's fiercest advocate. He used his immense influence to set up a full-ride scholarship fund for her, covering any university in the world, for as long as she wanted to study. More importantly, he created a summer internship program at the Naval Research Lab specifically for non-traditional thinkers, with Maya as its first honorary member. The story, once declassified, became a legend, a stark reminder that the most brilliant solutions often come from the most unexpected places, from minds unburdened by the dogma of how it's always been done. Leo didn't get $100 million. But he got something far more valuable. That night, as he tucked Maya into her bunk on the now functioning warship, she hugged him tight and whispered, "Dad, did I do good?" Tears welled in Leo's eyes. "You did more than good, baby. You reminded them that a different kind of smart exists. You're kind of smart." He kissed her forehead, the hero of the USS Vigilance, his greatest achievement not a repaired valve, but the incredible daughter sleeping safely before him. So, what's the lesson here? It's that genius isn't always about the highest degree or the most complex equation. Sometimes, it's about seeing the simple, elegant solution everyone else is too complicated to notice. It's a lesson in humility, in the power of a different perspective, and in the unbreakable bond between a father who believed in his daughter and the daughter who saved the day. If this story moved you, if it made you think, then do us a favor, smash that like button, share it with someone who needs a little inspiration, and subscribe. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we uncover the hidden heroes living among us. Thanks for watching.